we have been so ingrained in our culture, ingrained in our culture.
Yeah, that's
right?
beautiful.
Sorry, I kill myself sometimes. We're not giving up.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's important what I think what we're doing and what specifically you're doing with your channel.
Yeah. This is fun. I appreciate you too.
Yeah, as helping improve lives and improve the health of men. And so tell me more about how you got started in this.
I got started in this when I turned 50 just a couple of years ago and realized my markers for my health weren't where they needed to be, and I wasn't feeling where I wanted to be feeling, because I don't think 50 is over the hill. I don't think you're done. I don't think you're decrepit by any means necessarily by 50. It's just a number. It's not 80. It's not 90.
Yeah.
Things should be working great. And I had a benign tumor or growth here on the side of my left side of my abdomen, which I had to have removed, and that was a pain in the ass, and it left a scar, and it was annoying. Like, why should I have a freaking tumor? There's no reason for that if you're taking care of your body, in my mind. That's just my mindset. And in addition, I have a history of cancer in the family, diabetes in my family. And if you're turning 50 and your shit isn't dialed in, and you have certain historical, genetic predispositions, you're just asking for trouble. So why ask for trouble? So those were kind of the factors that were going on in my life at the time that made me think and reevaluate and wonder, can I do better? And I think the answer is yes, I could do better.
Okay. So you had some of those health issues that made you start really thinking about why this is important. And so how did you start attacking that? How did you know where to start? I think a lot of people just like, man, I'm having all these health issues. I'm pre-diabetic or whatever. I'm just overweight. I don't have good energy. There's a lot of things usually that accumulate, right? That cause people to go, oh man, I need to change something. So how did you know where to start? Where did you start that process?
I think in my case, I'm a bit of a numbers geek, and I like to read. I'm a voracious reader, so I'm lucky. And I think one of the fun things about this channel is I get a chance to synthesize some of this information that I've come across and put it out there and to see if it connects with other men. And if it does, great, use it. And if it helps you, great. So I've been reading a lot of medical doctors and scientists and researchers, and I'm none of that, full disclosure. I'm just a regular guy who works an office job, but I'm passionate about this stuff. I'm smart enough to understand the books and the reading that's summarized for us. So I started reading. So Dr. Mark Hyman, Dr. David Perlmutter, who's a neurologist, a lot of functional medicine guys. Dave Asprey, believe it or not, is wonderful. He's a guy who's just a biohacker, a guy who tries to figure out and experiment with his own body. How can I make my body better? And he's just a laboratory unto himself. I love guys like that. And I've always been a guy who likes to tweak and experiment and learn and ask lots of questions. So I started putting into action some of the information that I've been reading and learning about for the last several years. And instead of just being lazy and being a couch potato who reads about health, I just thought, wait a minute, why not actually have great, vibrant health instead of reading about it or talking about it?
Okay. So you started with just reading a lot of stuff, which is great. Now, like myself, I have a really hard time just slogging my way through a book because I got some ADD going, right? So I start looking at the page and I'm like, man, they could have worded that paragraph better. Or man, they could have really summarized this whole chapter in a couple paragraphs, right? Yeah. And so that distracts me, and then I'm like, I'll get to this later, and I don't. So one of the things that I found, if you're trying to start with really getting that information, is just watching videos like this on YouTube, where you can start digesting that information. So like I can. Because I pay for YouTube Premium, and I'm not sponsoring YouTube or anything like that. But
yeah, you just love it.
But when you get YouTube Premium, you can download all these things. So I'll research something I'm interested in, like carbohydrates. How do carbohydrates affect the body? We eat a lot of carbohydrates, right? So how does that affect the body? So then I can do a search on there, and then I can just download those videos. So then when I'm driving somewhere or doing housework or a chore, then I can listen to all those things and be learning, gaining knowledge while I'm doing something, simple.
Yeah. So you're learning while feeding your need
Yes.
for continual activity.
Yeah, I'm out shoveling snow or something. I can listen to a podcast or something like that. So if you're not a big reader, get audiobooks, get a subscription to some kind of thing. Like I do a subscription to Scribd.
Yes.
It's similar to Audible, but it's not Amazon.
Right.
They have a lot of great titles there you can do learning on. So, okay. So you started kind of your transforming process by just reading more. What did you feel were some of the most important things that you read or that you learned about that's made the biggest impact to your health?
I think, and part of it is, I think too, the saying goes, when the student is ready, the teacher will emerge. I had all these books on my shelf for years. I had been reading them for years, but those teachers, I wasn't ready for them. So I think part of it was, that click of being ready and saying to myself, I wouldn't put up with mediocrity in my business life. I wouldn't put up with mediocrity in my relationship. Why should I put up with mediocrity in here? This is everything we've got. God gave us, I think, these bodies, these mechanisms, which work great. So of course I got to step up my game. So I think the ones that I first grabbed onto when I was ready might have been one of the MDs I talked about or mentioned earlier, which is Jason Fung. He wrote The Obesity Code, and it's all about how obesity can be reversed. It's not natural at all. It's just a symptom of other things going on in the body. And that was fascinating to me and really encouraging. Like, oh my God, you don't have to be stuck in an obese body your whole life. You can make a choice. And it's not even that hard. That was wonderful. Sure, it takes effort, but it's not that hard, or as hard as I once thought. And I was maybe 35, 40 pounds overweight. I was overweight for sure, but I wasn't what you call obese.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really encouraging, man. And I started thinking, wow, man, I love humanity. I want people to not suffer needlessly. So I thought, wow, these guys help me. Maybe I can share this information with people, friends, family. Some of them don't want to listen to you, right? Yeah. But there might be other people who will listen. I've got in my family plenty of folks who are obese, plenty of folks fighting diabetes. They're not interested in this. They just think I'm some wacko. And that's cool. But there are other people who might think this wacko has a point, or I could learn a few things from this lunatic. Maybe he's not so crazy.
Yeah. One of the things I feel has been really important in some of our discussions is just how we consume fats versus carbohydrates. And I know this isn't really a discussion on that, but I think that is that's one thing that you really learned a lot about and has made a huge difference just on getting your weight to where you want it to be in a healthy spot, a way to control your blood sugars so that you're not getting that insulin resistance that is tied to so many different diseases and neurological diseases too, right? To include Alzheimer's.
Yes, for sure.
And I think that's such a huge thing that people are missing these days is we have been so ingrained in our culture, ingrained in our culture.
Yeah,
right? Sorry, I kill myself sometimes.
It's true.
But it's those grains and those carbohydrates and starting our day with a bowl of carbohydrates. And milk, which has a lot of sugar in it, actually. A lot of people don't realize that.
Even if it's a bowl of oatmeal, that's not much less sugar content, right, than some shitty cornflakes.
But it's
all grains,
yeah. It's starting the day with those carbohydrates just spikes your blood sugar and then starts you on a whole day of cravings versus starting with just some fats and protein that are going to satisfy you and get you through till It'll take you further, and your body stays in that fat burning mode. So people don't realize that you can literally eat fat and get thin. It's so.
Yeah. That's another great book. That is
is
a title.
I love that.
And it's freaking true.
And if you have a Scribd subscription, you should link to that in your description.
True. Okay. Yeah,
if you have a Scribd subscription, there is a video presentation. The author of Eat Fat, Get Thin has I think it's like a 60-minute presentation or something on the basic gist of his book. And it's really a powerful concept for anyone who's trying to lose weight, or even you can still maintain your weight if you're at a healthy weight, and lower your blood sugars, which are causing all of those kinds of inflammation and brain disease and other kinds of diabetic issues. So that's, I would say, if you're feeling overweight, that's a great place to start. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. No, I love that. Love the book. Love
Eat Fat, Get Thin. It's really amazing. The concept is simple. So that's a good one.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. And this is a good one. Yeah, the body, what you're alluding to is that the body can burn sugar for energy, which most of us do. We're constantly eating sugar, carbs, or what I call peasant food. There's no shortage of sugar in our bodies, so we're usually living off of those sugars, which is fine to a degree. But the body has another equally valid mechanism for obtaining energy, which is fat, which you just alluded to. And most people, including myself, I lived 50 years on this earth without realizing, oh my God, the body can actually feed itself and run a marathon if you wanted to, and be potent and go to the gym and work out hard and have a great life, and doing it while fat burning. Yeah. Wow, that blew my mind.
Yeah. So I've done the Leadville Trail Marathon.
Yeah. You're a serious runner.
Yeah. The first time, so that starts at 10,000 feet elevation, and does a whole lot of this,
dude.
And then
I couldn't do it.
Peaks over 13,000 feet, and then you come back. But one of the runners on our team, he did that whole thing with just a couple spoonfuls of peanut butter. No carbohydrates, no energy gels, just hydration and a couple spoonfuls of peanut butter. But he's fully fat adapted.
Fat adapted, okay.
Yeah. And he's fit and clearly capable of finishing, and he finished before I did. So
incredible.
Just it's totally possible. And we've just been fed lies about carbohydrates need to be the staple of your diet, and that is a lie.
Yeah, that's the pyramid, right? We need to invert that pyramid, perhaps, but it's definitely wrong.
So carbohydrates are important, but where you get them from is more important. From my research, it's those simple carbohydrates that you find in grains and corn. It's the peasant food that you're alluding to that's really cheap.
Spaghetti.
Yeah. But the more important carbohydrates are the ones that have high nutrient density.
Fiber content.
Yeah. So, and that's going to be found in what kind of things?
When I'm going for the highest density carb I'll go for is like sweet potato. I think sweet potato is okay. I maybe wouldn't start the day with it, but I'll have it.
Yeah. So I'm thinking
fruits too. Obviously, fruits have fructose, which is a form of carb.
Yeah. So I'm thinking is the vegetables.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
We're getting those complex high carbohydrates that have lots of nutrients in them, right? So
I
like
eat a lot of nuts, a lot of seeds, and a lot of carrots and greens in general. Yeah.
Yeah. And then another thing that I'm getting into now is fermenting those vegetables, and that process of fermentation actually breaks down some of the things that we cannot digest ourselves or have a hard time digesting. And we let those enzymes work and break down the vegetables during the fermentation process. And then you get more nutrients because your body can actually absorb them. So that's another exciting
that's cool
piece that a lot of people don't realize is actually fermenting vegetables will give you more nutrients from them. And they're probably the most important source of carbohydrates that your body
I admit, I don't know
needs.
much about fermenting. I know it's
Yeah.
huge in Asian culture. I know you were stationed in Japan for a while.
Yeah.
Those guys have an important part of the puzzle, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah. So what else about your journey is, would you say is a real important piece that could be maybe translated to someone else's life in this that's watching here?
Something really interesting in my path that I think could be relevant to a lot of folks is we can either make changes slowly over time, which I think is arduous, painstaking, and annoying, or you can just make a decision one day. I want to be a better Ian. I want to be a better whomever I am, right? And you can do this in weeks or months. It's not a lifetime of struggle and pain. That's the great part.
Mm-hmm.
I just did, for instance, a 72-hour fast, 72 hours. And I thought, wait a minute. I was told my whole life, you can't skip a meal, let alone 2 meals. You'll die or you'll lose muscle mass is the other one that people tell you. Or no, you won't be a man anymore. You'll lose your biceps or your pectorals will just collapse. All this bullshit. It's complete horseshit, because what I ended up learning in the process is we store tons of glycogen, which is how the body stores sugar, in our muscles. So my quadriceps, my abs, my pectorals, my shoulders are holding energy right now.
Yeah.
So when you fast, the body just says, it basically says nothing. It continues operating as normal because it draws the sugar from somewhere else, from your quads or pecs or shoulders. And your liver stores a bunch of it too. Turns out your liver stores about 30 grams of sugar equivalent in glycogen. So when you fast for a couple, 3-4 days, absolutely nothing happens. That was a fascinating thing that just blew my mind.
Well,
I wasn't even really that hungry along the way.
It wasn't that absolutely nothing happens. There was actually some amazing things happening in your body.
Yes.
You were just referring to like,
yes, absolutely.
You didn't waste away.
That's true. Nothing happened on the outside in any negative way or like that. What ended up happening though, I'm big on metrics. I'm big on using, we live in America. We have access to everything relatively cheaply. So a homeless guy could afford a glucose meter. It costs nothing. It's $40-$50. And you can prick your finger in the morning on your own without a doctor or a nurse or your wife to help you. Nothing. It's easy. We should all be doing that, in my opinion. And so I tested it during the 72-hour fasting process, and that was fun. And I encourage people to do it because part of what happens is doctors don't tell us anymore what we need to know. They're not honest with us. I have people in my family who are 300 pounds, and these are women.
Yeah.
Whenever they go to the doctor, he never mentions their weight as an issue. He might give them some palliative, some med to help improve this symptom or that. But the point is, don't necessarily rely on your doctor. Again, I'm not an MD, but you want to take with a grain of salt what anybody tells you, and especially doctors. So anyway, I think most of us are either diabetic or heading there fast, and you can figure this out by testing your own blood. Why not do that? It just seems smart and simple and empowering.
So what is it about blood sugars that is so important to have a metric on it? Like, well, tell me more about why that's so important.
One of the things that draws me to it is I see so many folks around me in their 70s and even starting younger than that. Anyway, that they've had dementia or serious brain fog or Alzheimer's or worse, or strokes, which are related to the tissues of the brain. And all these kinds of things, honestly, they scare me. I just don't want to go that way. And I don't want the people who love me to have to deal with this guy, this poor, pathetic dude who just made choices that led him exactly to the wheelchair he's in.
Yeah.
Or to be dribbling all over himself, and not able to put words together. I don't want that. So the more I've studied from some of these MDs and scientists, the more I realize that there's a massive link. They call it diabetes 3 now. Alzheimer's is called diabetes 3 by some doctors. So what ends up happening is if you're over 95, and to me it's awesome as a numbers guy.
95.
Yeah, 95 on the glucose read. Yeah. So if you go prick your finger in the morning and it's 95 or higher, you're damaging your brain all night. Who the hell wants that? So once I realized that I was damaging my brain all night, and I was ready to do something about it, I took action, and it wasn't that hard. So I think that's what gets me most passionate about the glucose monitoring, is knowing that it could damage my brain as well as kidneys, which can lead, for example, to eventually being on dialysis or needing a freaking transplant. Oh, that's our doggy over there. Killer.
Yeah. There's a bird on the porch.
So I think it's that. And also, sorry to interrupt. I think also what gets me excited about having good, low, healthy sugars is that I learned that the healthier and lower they are, the more other metabolic processes in the body work appropriately. In other words, autophagy, which is when your cells, the dying or degenerate or broken down or useless cells in the body, which we all have, those need to get broken down and eliminated. Well, that happens best in a low sugar environment. When you're in a high sugar environment, the body is so busy trying to get that damn sugar out of your bloodstream that it says, we'll take care of the cellular repair tomorrow. We'll take care of the cancer prevention tomorrow. And forget about the Alzheimer's prevention. We don't have time for that shit. Right now, we're toxic. You fed us a bunch of crap, or maybe too much of the good stuff. That's possible. But in most of our cases, we're just eating crap. You fed us so much crap. We've got to deal with this emergency, you guys. So now my chances are going up for the cancer, for the Alzheimer's, and for the diabetes. Oh, my God. And that's how most of us live. And it's unfortunate. The good news is it's not necessary.
Yeah.
And if 1 or 2% of guys in this country start to realize that and take action, I'm happy. That would be wonderful, right? To be a part of that education and inspiration.
Yeah, that is inspiring, and I really appreciate what you're trying to do with this channel, and I hope people will share it with other people because
that's true. Yeah, it'd be fun.
It's gonna really change lives, and that's really the point of this, right? Changing lives for the better, helping to live life as we age at a much higher quality of life, right? Not just for ourselves, but think about for families, right? Nobody wants to be that guy who gets Alzheimer's because we're eating crap all our lives. I mean, I don't want to be that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and hopefully none of you want to be that. And so it's important not just for your own health, but for your families to really look at this and to see what you can do to break out of this simple carbohydrate addiction that we've been fed all of our lives.
Yeah, that's sad. And I think the amazing thing is most men who care even one iota for their families are going to have, for example, a job or a business that supports the family. They're going to think about the future and maybe have a trust, or they're going to make sure their papers are in order in life. They're going to take care of all those things. So why not do that with your own body so that you can also give in that way, through your presence, through your wisdom, through your counsel, through your participation in the life of your kids or your wife or your loved ones. I mean, how wonderful if we think of that future too, which we're developing now. You don't get rich usually overnight. You don't build a successful business overnight. Well, health is also a lifetime effort and dedication and love. And I think that's what we should do. I think it's actually our responsibility. I think we're being kind of weak if we give up on any of these things. If we say, oh, screw the future, screw my wife and kids once I'm gone. I think that's not the kind of guy that's going to be attracted to this process. That's a different kind of audience, honestly. We're trying to help the guys who are seeing, hey, wait a minute, I can actually, through my own actions, help my family have a better future. Okay, yeah. Sign me up.
It's it's a little bit of giving up that thing maybe that you love, like just having some people, especially different cultures, they're ingrained with starting the morning with simple carbohydrates. Those white breads and
a tortilla,
honey and toast, and like that's one of the worst ways you can start your day. What's a much better way to start your day?
I like your idea, which is, and I usually eat this way, is proteins and fats. And actually, I learned something from you in that regard. I'll usually start the day with 3 fried eggs, either in ghee or butter, because they have such a much higher flash point, so they don't become carcinogenic and hurt your body to cook in ghee or butter. So anyway, I'll usually cook 3 fried eggs in ghee or butter, pepper them up, salt them up, very nice. And then maybe I'll have a beef sausage with that. I try to get grass-fed good beef when I can. And then after having eaten the proteins and the fats like that, I will have a little bit of sweets with it. I'll have a small handful of blueberries and raspberries, one or the other, sometimes both, I don't have a little bit of nut butter, something that does not have added sugar, of course.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get Jiffy peanut butter or something. And maybe a little raw cream in there. So that's the sweet component, but I've had it after, as you alluded to, after the body has already been digesting the proteins and the fats so that it's not hit with a bomb immediately when you get out of bed by an injection of sugar. And that's usually what I'll eat. And the funny part is I'm not hungry for another 4 hours or 5.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed that in yourself, but that's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. You start the day with those kind of simple carbohydrates. And then, so if I start the morning at 8:30 with a bowl of cereal, or
you're screwed.
Yeah. Then you're hungry by 9:30 or 10, like looking for a snack.
Yeah.
But if you start the day with those proteins and fats, it's hours. And even when I do start to get hungry, it's not a quick thing like, oh man, I'm starving. It's like, okay, I can sense that I have some hunger, but my energy doesn't drop sharply.
You're not hangry?
Yeah. I don't get hangry. I have a sustained level of energy that drops slowly when I start to get hungry. And so that's a huge benefit to eating those fats in the morning. So avocados is a great way to start, but
love those,
it can be bacon. It can be
bacon is actually good for you, which is the opposite of what we've been told. It's incredible.
Yeah. So I try to avoid most carbohydrates for my first part of the meal, but then shortly thereafter I'll add something in, like those berries, or sometimes I'll cook spinach in with my eggs, or add some cheese, like a low carbohydrate cheese.
And we saw that last time, by the way, in our discussion 2 weeks ago, was the cheeses.
Yeah, you can.
We were looking at the information on that.
I can link to that video. And
yes, that was fun.
Is there anything else you'd like to share as far as where you came from and where you feel like guys can really get started in making those life changes?
For me, like I say, I enjoy reading, and there are so many men in different walks of life. Some of the guys that I have learned from they're just in completely varied, different walks of life. I mean, one of the guys is Tim Ferriss, who's basically an author who used to be a computer geek, hacker type guy. Another one is Dave Asprey, who's a biohacker. He's also a tech guy originally. But I love reading Jocko Willink. Jocko Willink. Famous special forces guy. I mean, the guy is amazing. He's 10 times tougher than me, 100 times tougher than me, right? Mentally, physically, everything.
He's like a barnyard,
He looks tough on the outside, and it's just as tough on the inside, these guys. Incredible. So I love Jocko and these special forces guys. But I also love some of the nerdy scientists. I mean, Jason Fung is a brilliant man and a powerhouse of a mind, but he's an MD and a scientist, complete opposite of Jocko.
Yeah.
So I get inspiration, really. I draw inspiration from other men. And I think that's part of what helped me come up with the idea, hey, maybe I should put together a channel and synthesize some of this information, because there's nothing wrong with learning from one another. I think it's actually stupid to try and do everything alone. Why do you want to go? I mean, I guess you could fabricate a wheel for your vehicle from scratch, but it would take you 18 months just to source the freaking materials. That's stupid. So why reinvent this wheel? There's so much information out there. And I guess the inspiration here, or the takeaway, what I would love really is for guys to take control of their own health by realizing that it's completely in their hands, and that if you just do a little bit of self-observation, whether it's checking your glucose in the morning with a machine that's $40, $50, whether it's getting lab work once a year. I mean, people know how much is in their bank account, or check that information way more often than they check their cholesterol or their sugars or their uric acid. We should know what our sugars are. We should know what our cholesterol is, I think. We shouldn't just know how much is in my B of A. They're equally important. So I think that's what the takeaway for me is, to inspire guys to grab this thing by the balls, meaning their own health, and realize, oh my God, there's a lot of data that I'm unaware of, but is so available to me in America. I mean, if we lived in some third world country, it would be very difficult to get this data. I mean, maybe you wouldn't have access to a doctor or a nurse or a lab. Here it's literally nothing, for a day's work. Even if you're working a minimum wage job, for that kind of money, you could get a full panel on yourself, and it's so worth it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's a really good thing. I would like to. So I have not done the full panel thing yet, but I am interested in doing that.
And you're younger than me, so that's the other thing. You can cheat when you're barely early 40s. You can still cheat and get away with certain things.
Yeah,
Right.
and but I do the intermittent fasting.
Oh
so,
yeah, you're awesome at that.
yeah. So I do that quite a bit. So I don't feel like I need to have the glucose monitoring. So if that's something you don't want to just go out, or you're like afraid to prick yourself, it's not the end of the world. You can still utilize a lot of these techniques of just starting the day with fats and proteins, avoiding those simple carbohydrates like bread and
Honey,
rice and
agave, or
those intense sweets, and then you're extending your fat burning process later into the day. And a nice easy hack to doing that, to actually having your breakfast midday. So most of the time,
Smart.
I don't break my fast. I don't eat food until about noon most days. And so the way that I don't feel hangry or whatever is by having my coffee and then putting a good slice of butter in it, melting that butter in there. It's that fats, mostly just fats.
Yep.
And then if it's just butter, then there's some milk solids in it, but it's mostly just fats. And so you still get most of the benefits of fasting, that autophagy that you talked about earlier.
You're getting younger, and basically.
And the fat burning, just by putting some butter in your coffee and then waiting to eat until noon. Yeah, so that's a super easy way.
Right. And it costs nothing.
Yeah.
Like a dollop of butter and a cup of coffee won't even cost you 50 cents if you're making this at home. It's amazing.
Yeah. So you're literally saving money and losing weight and feeling better, and your body is regenerating itself, having a better generation. I think it's just the simplest, easy to do hack for getting started.
That's a great one. That's a great one, because we want people to build up some self-confidence and get some early wins, right? Because I typically fast at night, which is just as valuable, maybe even more valuable, but I admit it's harder. Yeah. It's harder to skip dinner, especially if you're in a relationship, you've got family and everybody else is eating. That's harder, but it's also valid, both. And
I tend to drink beer later in the evening. Right. So I'm not. So that's adding calories and some carbohydrates there later in the evening. So then how I compensate for that is then not having my breakfast until noon, but I'll still have my buttered coffee. So yeah, I
think that's smart. You're giving yourself, because we still want to live and have fun and be social. I don't think people should stop entirely having things that are delightful like beer, especially because you make your own craft beer. I mean, of course you should have that now and then, but it's good that you're aware enough to say, all right, I'm going to compensate tomorrow. Yeah. You know, I earned this break, right? or this cheat because I didn't eat all day, or I'm doing certain things.
I would say too that, having that cheat, because, I'll have, especially during the holidays, it's hard to avoid all sweets, and I don't think you need to, but when you do have those, you want to have those sweet things. Maybe you want a piece of cheesecake or something.
Sure.
Because my neighbor's a very sweet lady, and she'll make me apple pies and stuff like that. I'm like,
she's the devil.
That's a lot of sugar right there. It'll take me most of the month to get to eat through that pie, but I'll do it after I've had my breakfast. So I've already broken my fast with those kind of higher fats things, maybe some vegetables that are those complex carbohydrates that are good for you. And then a little bit later, I'll have that dessert. So your body's, okay, you've broken the fast. Now it's starting to generate the things that it needs to be able to process effectively those simpler sugars that are going to spike your insulin levels.
So you're saying it's not ready in the morning to have a piece of chocolate cake in your body. It's not ready for avocado toast. when you first step out of bed.
Right. It's not. It's like the same reason why you wouldn't just rev a cold engine,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, yeah. It's going to backfire. It's going to be hard on carburetor and fuel injectors. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to put extra pressure on the seals because the
They're not
oil
lubricated.
viscosity isn't quite there. Modern engines are a lot better about that, but still, most people that understand mechanically, you shouldn't just go to a dead sprint. It's like if you went to a track and you were going to do some sprints, you don't start immediately with the sprints.
I got it.
You do some warm-ups, right? It's the same thing with eating those simple sugars, those high sugar content things. Your body should be warming up to that point.
That's good. I like that.
Otherwise, the results it's not going to be as good for your body. You're going to experience more crashes. You might have flushing from the sugars, or maybe increased insulin resistance, which has all those negative effects for your body. Those negative mental effects. So, so warm up your body before you get into those heavy sugar things. It's not that you can't have them, but just warm up to them first.
Yeah, if you're going to do them, warm up. Okay. Yeah. Emerging Savage is the channel. Hopefully folks will enjoy it. Maybe they'll even have questions, teach me some things too.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to learn because sometimes I feel like I'm a beginner on this. I've experimented a lot on my own body, but I need to do a lot more reading, get even more data from the outside. And that's good.
Me and Cosby, I've got a channel called Strength and Balance. And Yep. I've got a few videos on there. It's mostly running at this point, but I add a few other things here and there. Strength and Balance. Strength and Balance, yeah. And it was a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Awesome.
Take care.
All right. I invite you to join the conversation with myself and other men and what we're all doing to find that inner savage and bring them to life. Not only for our benefit, but for the benefit of those around us, people we care about. All right, man. Stay strong.